Dear friends and honorable strategic international partners, today I want to discuss the political situation in my country. I am chairman of non-governmental organization Civil Society Transformation Center, Free Mind. I want to introduce you a real analysis of situation in the Republic of Georgia. The Georgian Dream, the ruling party, is divided into clans and legitimate mafia grouping, which is perfectly discussed by humanism and nobility. In fact, it represents dictatorship which is responsible for their well-being. After the elections in 2012, the Georgian Dream came into the government. The situation in the country significantly worsened. 500,000 of Georgian population is socially undefended, while the immigrants number in the country is 1,700,000, which daily increases. For diners, number of the beneficiaries has increased to 3,800,000. 7,700,000 children live in extreme poverty, consuming about 2 gel in a day, and about 200,000 children consume only 3 gel per day. 275,000 people are employed in public services. The rest of the population is self-employed or are dependent on the subsidies sent by immigrants. In fact, it occurs that population of a country is not dependent financially on government. Despite the poverty of the country's citizens, government parties and their family members live in wealth and luxury. The country's economy is in collapse. Inflation rate has reached a culmination, including the prices on primary goods are increasing daily, which leads to the poverty of many families. The development has obstructed in regions and villages, so the population is forced to leave their homes and go abroad to deal with the poverty. The budget of the country is spent inappropriately. All the businesses are monopolized, and the government's institutions are on the way of collapse. In Georgia, nepotism and crony capitalism is spread all over the country. One of the major problems is the dysfunction of justice and court. Unfortunately, selective justice is a normal thing. If a family member of the ruling political party commits any kind of criminal action, including murder, will be justified. Several deputies, I forbear from specifying their names, were paid a large amount of money instead of pardoning the dangerous recidivists. All the criminal offenders, people who were exposed in corruption and who were against law, were rehabilitated by the Georgian Dream. Most of both mentioned people are staff of legislative and executive bodies of government, while other agencies are completed with non-professionals. The country is in a dangerous criminal situation, taking into consideration the increasing number of criminal activities, cheating, robbery, and murder. Since the Georgian Dream has come to the government, murder and suicide of many people are connected to the fresh officials and officials. Mostly these kind of cases are unsolved. Political persecution is a common phenomenon. For evidence of the high democratic standards of the executive government, sometimes court trials are delivering acquittal verdicts. As a result of the massive population migration, the number of foreign migrants in the country is increasing. Mostly, the migrants are from Muslim countries. In the center of the capital city are opened many brothels by Iranians and other Muslims, which is really repulsive for the society. This fact causes conflicts and aggression between locals and Muslim migrants. Aggression rises daily, which leads to the unenviable results. In the period government of coalition Georgian Dream, the country's security service has disordered in the working process. This fact has led the country to disaster. Russian peacemakers from occupied territories are freely crossing Georgian border and kidnapping citizens of Georgia. Ossetian separatists tortured and then killed our soldier Archil Tatunashvili. Such fact was also on the Georgian-Abkhazian border, where Abkhazian separatist Rashid Kanjiogli killed Giga Otkozoria. Murderers are not punished because they live on the territory that is under Russian Federation control. These facts caused the insecurity feeling in the whole population of Georgia. Over the past 5 years, there have been 11 big shale fires. During these fires, a large number of objects, marketplaces, and shops were burned down and destroyed. The owners of the objects are directly related to government officials. Relying on this fact, it is supposed that each fire has been originated by intervention. Russian intelligence services on the territory of Georgia, the hybrid war, and the popularization of the Russian Federation are solidifying the chain of problems in the country. Active anti-Western campaign and a desire of getting closer relations with Russia are doubtfully governed by Georgian senior officials. It is also worth mentioning that in Georgia there are several nationalist organizations which are against the Russian Federation but still condemn the West and its liberal values. Politicians, government officials, as well as the Public Defender's Office and especially pseudo-liberal NGOs are encouraging such forces by their narrative promotes. These people are trying to enforce the population to perceive the Western values as the most receivable and essential for them, which leads to the terrible aggression in endemic origin of society. For example, the Georgian King Tamar was printed by a pseudo-liberal group on the condoms. Consciously, it ended up with aggression and conflict. In parallel, pro-Russian parties, religious figures, and radical nationalist movements are constantly confronted with pseudo-Western groups. But admitting their angle of perspective is relied on preservation of national values and identity, which is more acceptable for the major percentage of the population. Georgia approximately is 3,000 years old. We are ancient civilization and we are a country of great culture. Values like tolerance, religious secularism comes from ancient times. Xenophobia and racism was never encouraged in Georgia. We peacefully lived with ethnic groups of 15 republics that were part of the Soviet Union. Now things have changed. People see legality and cannot rise from poverty. In parallel to this, officials and pseudo-liberal NGOs ask them to forget their ethnic identity and values and explain that this is the will of the West. Now you know what to push people away from West and for what about the Russian forces have such success in Georgia. While the visits of politicians in America or Europe, they admit that the population of Georgia is delighted with Western politics, which is a big lie, because the above-mentioned politicians are deliberately letting people to live in poverty and in parallel to perceive the Western values, which are totally incomprehensible. Such kind of irrational policy divided the population into four polarized groups. The first group that is indifferent to the development in the country. The second, Western Vision group, the number of which is reduced daily. The third, pro-Russian group, the number of which increases daily. And pro-Georgian groups, which are mostly supporting pro-Russian forces rather than Western Vision groups. It is noteworthy, and the political leaders analyze that such kind of situation in the country seriously harms Georgia's integration with the West. Considering the fact that the most of the officials and members of opposite political parties are the agents of the Russian Federation, it is rare that their activities are streamed for fulfilling their mission. Instead, they receive additional funds and finances from Russian Federation. Unfortunately, it is difficult to find evidence for me to prove their work on Russian special services, but that does not mean that this is a lie. It should be said that 33 strategic objects in Georgia are owned by Russian companies who can play a decisive role on international economic decisions. Now I want to discuss the political crisis in the country, which is on critical points. The situation is quite obvious. The opposition is not supported even 60% of the frustrated population. So in future there is no chance of winning the elections in order to defeat the Georgian dream. They are acting in absolute disorder, not analyzing the current situation and using outdated political methods for recovering existing problems and find solutions for future progress and development of the country. The real rating of the government coalition is 5%. Most of all, they are afraid of new political force. Because of this, they demonstrate disloyalty against independent member of opposition. If new force will come out on political arena, they will not be able to win elections in 2020. Consequently, they decided to create the story that the coalition party is dividing into groups. This is one from the many methods of coming into the government and continue the regime during many years. But I think if things don't change in a fast time because of the unbearable situation in the country, they will face losing their power and influence in the society. So they might play the performance of civil war. Considering aggression caused by polarization people into groups, poverty, and alienation of nation against political parties, government, and religious figures, and in the background of all, activation of pro-Russian political parties and groups, the soil for civil war is ready. I think if the civil war will begin, the Russian Federation will let their military services in Georgia, concluding peacekeeping mission. They will occupy country. Frankly, saying this kind of plan is quite disgraceful for the country's government, but it might not be surprising for the population. While the government is narrow-minded on their own wealth and does not have any sense of responsibility and personal liability toward the society. Due to all the above and after analyzing all the threats, still there is a chance to make cardinal changes. For this purpose, the strategic partner of the country, the United States, should support the startup political groups and newly established non-governmental organizations with real democratic values to avoid the political sabotage. With the assistance of the strategic partner, the process of getting rid of renegade politicians and other country traitors will start. As soon as they will be replaced with new progressive, open-minded force, we will be able to survive the country from the existing regressive situation. I care about strategic partnership with the United States of America. Also, I appreciate Western culture and state management system. And I cannot be indifferent to the pervasive actions that are happening in our country. By the help of some pseudo-liberal non-governmental organizations and government officials in order to get more luxury and finances, which causes populations alienation and aggression against the West. I was forced to record this video, otherwise my voice would not reach you. It will be an honor for me to meet with the ambassador of the United States of America in Georgia and personally tell him about the current situation in the country, because everything can't be written and can't be said in the public. Thank you for your attention.